Let's get salty!
Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and Showdown the Badlands has been out for almost a week. Well, not quite, but I wanted to go over something I'm always asked a lot about, and I usually give my opinion right about now, of what are the must craft cards from the latest expansion. What are the cards that seem the safest, at least, to craft, and what decks can they go into, whether it's standard, wild, maybe even duels? Well, I'm going to give you my advice, my tips based on just what I've seen, the data out there, and well, we're going to keep it to just epics and legendaries, as common rares are relatively cheap to craft, and also you'll probably open the majority of them in packs or from rewards or whatever. And if you enjoy the content of the channel, feel like I've earned your subscription, please hit that sub button down below. Give the video a like. We are nearing 76,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for that. So starting off with Death Knight, getting the whole like rainbow slash excavate slash like resummoning package. In terms of epics and legendaries, absolutely do not craft Corpse Farm. It is seeing pretty much no relevant meta play at the moment. Mon Paw is another card that I have not been impressed by in terms of win rate, in terms of its validity. Rainbow DK is just not super strong, and Mon Paw is not even a big part of what makes that deck kind of work as it stands. Yeah, it's just not really working out. So Mon Paw is, again, a card I would absolutely pass on. Harrowing Ox, so far, again, another card not really working out. Its numbers are not phenomenal across the board. I think some Frost Death Knight lists are running it, but overall, again, one I could not recommend crafting. Rescue, on the other hand, is kind of what puts together the whole excavate package of Death Knight. It is showing relatively solid numbers across the board. Again, the decks for Death Knight are not particularly super strong, but competitive enough. In particular, like the whole Plague and Excavate package in like Double Unholy Frost seems to be working, and Reska is basically the only Death Knight card I could possibly recommend crafting in terms of legendaries and epics. For Demon Hunter has mainly been Naga DH in terms of what's established itself as like a meta player in standard, and Bartendo Bot, definitely a card to consider crafting for that deck. Basically slots into there. You got Outcast Demon Hunter. It's a solid addition to the like any of those type of decks. I think this is going to be a meta card for quite some time. It's just very versatile. Drawing that Outcast card, sliding it to the left side of your hand, you really can't go wrong. It's seeing play as well to an extent in wild. You could probably play it in duels too. It's just a really solid card that if you like playing Demon Hunter, in particular Outcast cards, it's kind of a no-brainer. And Blind Eye Sharpshooter. Not only is this card outright pretty busted, you can literally OTK your opponent some games, turns 4 through 6. The card's performing really well, and the incentive of crafting this card is you're going to get your dust back at some point. There's no chance this card is not going to get nerfed at some point, probably sooner than later. So yes, I can absolutely recommend crafting it, and it's an effective card in both standard and wild. Snake Eyes, again, I didn't think this card was going to work out very well. Sadly, yeah, value in Demon Hunter, not really a thing. Reno Demon Hunter, not really popping off, and as a result, Kurtrus's numbers are not very good. Even his played win rate, your Highlander payoff cards played win rate, at least across Legend, or the numbers I'm looking at, it's not even positive. So yeah, I gotta pass on the legendaries at the moment for Demon Hunter. Not pulling their weight in their current meta. The epics, well, they seem pretty darn safe. Druid got one of the best sets, period, in this entire expansion. It's just ridiculous. Like, if you look at the stats for Druid cards, basically every card is a positive win rate card. So yeah, Dragon Tail's really good at Dragon Druid. One of the best decks out there. It's pretty darn solid. Really safe craft. It also sees a little bit of play in wild, especially like Highlander decks. It's just a really fun card. I believe it's even good to an extent in duels. So again, Dragon Tails, for sure safe. Dragon Golem, big part of what makes Dragon Druid so good. Getting multiple copies buffed up, just super strong. And again, has seen some play in wild where those strategies exist, sees play in duels. Another card I don't think you will regret crafting. Rhea Straws is probably the weakest of the epics and legendaries, but it's probably the most fun. Reno Druid in standard is competitive. It's not like top tier so far, but absolutely a legend capable deck. You could possibly climb. People are playing it even at like high legend still. And the main incentive of the deck is just really fun to play. This is such a sweet card. It's a really fun deck. And yeah, I can absolutely say you could craft this card, have fun with it, and win games. And again, in Wild, really solid. You got Guff there to give it some extra help, you know, and you can discover like Kazakhstans and really crazy dragons there, where again, absolutely will recommend it, even if the power level, or at least like in terms of winning percentages, not nearly as high as some of the other stuff. And then 5, this card, not only is the signature gorgeous, but the card is ridiculous. It's funny, I've played this card for like 7 or 6 mana, and it feels really strong. It's like a 4/12 lifesteal taunt for like 6 mana. That's great. You get it out for 0 like all the time, like no problem. Discover more of them even, 0 mana. In a while, again, we got Scale of Onyxia. This is down to 2 mana like that if you haven't even played another dragon. Really good card, and again, a dragon's popping off, or dragon druid is popping off in duels apparently. So overall, like, just the druid stuff is just ridiculous, and it's really fun. I actually really love this druid set, and if you could somehow, you can't craft this signature, but you can get it, it really is pretty nice. I don't know if I'll be recommending any set as heavily as the druid one, but in Fervor Hunter, saddle up, not really a craft you want to do. Star Shooter has not really been panning out so far either, so both epics you can pass on. Spurfang has been popping up in some lists. It seems to be maybe okay, but probably one I would wait on, see how it plays out. Reno Hunter is a somewhat viable deck and one of the best cards in the entire deck. This is a ridiculously good card. Deck win rate's really good on it. Mulligan win rate, played win rate, just a really good card. Theldurin giving you that board initiative. If it's hand buffed at all, it's even better. Really safe craft if you enjoy. It's only Reno Hunter, right? You can't play it in any other deck. But yeah, it seems to be a competitive deck, and it felt even good in Wild, where I could like Stitch Tracker, get more of those. And yes, I was achievement hunting with it, and it was pretty darn effective. Oh yeah, Mage apparently got cards. Don't craft this. This card's absolutely terrible. If you really want to play Excavate Mage, Reliquary Researcher is a pretty good card, one of the best cards of the deck, but that deck, I just can't recommend it. It's not super strong at the moment. I feel like that stuff is probably going to get buffed at some point, especially when you look at a card like Cryopreservation at 2 mana. Just seems a little bit rough. But overall, yeah, I'm honestly not going to recommend any of the mage cards at the moment. None of the newer stuff's really popping up. Most of the stuff that's being played is just Rainbow Mage with mostly old cards, and I think some of the commons and rares might slot in, but none of the legendaries and epics. So far, I would just pass on crafting any of the mage stuff as it stands. Paladin's absolutely crushing it right now. Probably the best class in standard, whether it's aggro, Reno Paladin, a lot of good stuff going on. And believe it or not, I know Trump thought this was gonna be like the worst card ever, but Showdown, you look at the stats, it's seeing a lot of play. It's doing pretty well. Yeah, it's mainly in Reno Paladin, but still getting those bodies out there, especially in conjunction with your Prismatic Beam, can be really powerful. Plus you have your auras that can take advantage of this card. It's worth crafting for a lot of these decks. Even playing it Wild, there's a lot of synergies I had going working with it that it felt pretty good. That, yeah, if you want to craft this card, particularly for Reno Paladin, I think it is absolutely worth it. Fear the Badlands is shown to be a really powerful Highlander Reno card for that archetype, something you absolutely want to have in that deck. And again, Reno Paladin's doing quite well. Even like pure versions that one copy of Reno, I was really skeptical on it. I think I recommended in Theory Crafting by Vicious. I'm like, they don't seem to know how to build a Reno deck, and it's actually performing really well. So what do I know, right? This is a really good card in those decks, and again, you want to play Reno Paladin, I think you're gonna have some fun, and you will want that card. And then you got the Badlands Bandits. The numbers on this card aren't terrible, but it's not played a lot, and like it's not been played a ton in a ton of decks. I think some people have tried like a one-up in Reno Paladin. I think it's just carried by that deck being good. Playing the card myself for achievement hunting purposes and all that, it's just not strong. It's okay, but it's certainly not a card I would ever go out of my way to craft. Living Horizon, again, showing really good numbers. Like all the Paladin cards are just kind of crushing it. That, yeah, if you're wanting to craft this, again, probably more for like a Reno. It's not really for aggro, more for Reno, and you know, can get it off your Spear of the Badlands. A bunch can be really helpful. Play it for cheap. It's a really solid card. And again, one that I feel like every card for Paladin is worth crafting. outside of those bandits, which again, even if you craft that, you're probably not going to be that upset. I just want to show you guys the stats I'm looking at for priest, all the priest cards, and how well they are basically working. Diamond through legend. Every card is in the negative for what we're looking at here. So priest cards, I can't recommend any of it, right? Like Benevolent Banker is one of the cards I thought like that might see players stealing a spell, but the bottles aren't working. This is one of the worst cards ever. I prefer Mind Games, a card that sucked in 2014. Like, it's just, I don't know what's going on with Priest. The last two sets have been pretty weak. And yeah, Elise, I thought this card would be really good, but I feel like it's just not enough to put things together. Elise is the highest played win rate card. In the entire preset, when you play her, you win 61% of your games, but the rest of the package just isn't there. So I still firmly believe this is a good card. She just has absolutely no help when she's literally being, you know, here's some bottles or a 4-mana 4/4. Like, what are you doing, right? Like, it's pretty darn rough. Rogue has actually got the exact same situation going on as Priest. It's like every card has a negative win rate. I was certain Drilly the Kid would be good enough just like on its own to get all these activates. I guess I just didn't really get the memo that the Azurite Scorpion just sucks, right? Like I said, like basically you just want your excavate rewards. And I think I even tweeted this, that like Rogue's gonna need hand size of 20 for all these cards, because that was before the expansion came out. And that's true. They just don't have the room for these cards. They're generating so much stuff that's not killing their opponent that they just, none of the new stuff is really winning. The only thing that's really going on is Ogre Rogue, which isn't really amazing. It's kind of a solid meme. It's not uber competitive, but it's a deck, you know, I can recommend to try and play, but I doesn't really utilize any of these cards. And Wishing Well, again, really fun card. This is probably one of the only crafts where I'll be like, you know what? The card, I think the deck win rate's like 40%, played win rate's like 42%. The card is not performing well enough. It is absolutely not a card you want to craft unless you want to have fun with it. And I do think it's really fun to coin out and get those legendaries. That's the whole nature of the card. So I will recommend this as a craft purely for the memes. Be aware you're not going to climb with this, but I do think it is one of the most fun cards of the expansion. And some cards are fine like that, right? It doesn't have to be competitive. It's just a lot of fun. So I will recommend it for that. And if you're wondering why I don't have the golden, I paid for the Tavern Pass and I'm waiting for those signature versions, which look really good. I gotta wait till level 75, by the way, but my goodness, it looks so good. I'm getting close, so level 51 already. I think I need to get a light. Shaman set before the expansion, I thought it looked really good, and that Shaman, although I wasn't sold on Reno, Shaman was going to work out. And yeah, all the cards are performing. A lot of them are doing really well. The elemental stuff, not so much. But Dr. Holiday, Reno Shaman is a legitimate deck. I see it in top 100 legend. The win rates are really solid on it, and Dr. Holiday is a big part of it. Oh my goodness, the frog shooting out. You don't have to get the diamond, which you have to buy one bundle to get to the next bundle. It literally costs $100. I paid $100 for a cosmetic. What is wrong with me? Regardless, it's a really good card. Craft the normal version if you want to play it, but Reno Shaman absolutely seems to be worth the worth admission. I label this as one of the best cards of the expansion, and so far it has a negative win rate in standard. It's insane and wild when like even Shaman, you just play it there, but there's like no good tribal deck at the moment. We're kind of foreshadowing to the elemental legendary later that is worth playing this in. So as it stands, I actually can't recommend crafting this for standard. The other cards are Scar, the Catastrophe, the legendary payoff that just, yeah, not doing well enough. It's got a great played win rate as expected of like 56%. You play it, you win. But the deck itself for elementals is sub 50%. And until that changes, Scar is just not quite there yet. It's just not enough elemental like generation, enough good elementals to really get that deck popping. It'd be nice if, you know, you could take a break each turn. But no, once you pass a turn, you lose that progress. So again, Scar is a card I would pass on. And Walking Mountain does pop up in some control lists here and there, seems to be okay-ish, but probably a card I wouldn't recommend crafting at the moment. I would stick to the other two stuff, unless you just really want to play Elemental Shaman, then go for it, but competitive level, it just isn't there. Warlock, the whole Slime Warlock with Popgar and all that, it's not quite really working out so well right now. None of the Warlock stuff, now that the whole Excavate treasure got nerfed, at least temporarily, is doing amazing. So again, Popgar is a card I wouldn't craft. Trolley Problem, a bit of a problem that I wouldn't recommend it, but I'm not going to. Excavate still somewhat like decent-ish. So like Smokestack, I could probably recommend if you still want to play this. Remember, this is not 4 mana, it's 6 mana at the moment. It's going to get changed later. There's probably going to be a dust refund on this anyways, I would assume. But again, you never know with Blizzard how they're going to operate, but you would assume at least Smokestack should get a dust refund on it when they get that final nerf. And Tram Conductor Jerry is just an insane card. Like, it just can go into a control shell with Excavate, whether it's an OTK build or not. I can recommend this card. You get a full board of rushers. It helps with your achievement and all that, but no, really good card, and he just looks really rad. And I like how he spawns on the left side and you got the whole train going. It's really cool. So I'll recommend some Tram Conductor Jerry. And Warrior, I was figuring the set wasn't great. I thought Misfire might be a card that makes the cut. So far, barely played. Numbers are not very good on it. You really need the quick draw. That's the main downside, and that's not super reliable and to set up. Slagma, way too slow. 4 mana. Pretty much lose the game. One of the worst performing cards of the entire expansion so far. The only card that's somewhat carrying its own weight in all of this is Badlands Brawler. There's some like XL Odin decks that run it, and it's pretty good there, but it's fringe for that. If you really like those grindy, slow control decks in Warrior, then you might want to consider Badlands Brawler, but Excavate Warlock in itself is not doing great. And I guess I'll say the same for Boom Boss. Really slow, only if you're into that really attrition style strategy, but again, not a very powerful card. Takes a lot to get that payoff, and even his played win rate is still not great, and that's not good for an 8 mana card. It does have a positive played win rate, so it's not an unredeemable card. You can craft it if you want, but overall probably one I would pass on as well. And lastly, for neutrals, Howdy Finn, not really doing much of work at all. Very little play. No class just runs out of cards. Like I figured when I saw that card, pretty darn irrelevant. Not really one you need to craft. And if you have the paid rewards track, you get it for gold. Get it golden anyways. Gattlesnake, again, like no data. Nobody's playing the card. Do not craft this card. Blend Firearm, as cool as a card as he looks and his effect, he's not worth a craft. The numbers are not good on him. Not played a lot. Doesn't really slot into much. It's just a quick draw like generation. It's just not reliable enough to really, you know, build around it. Castle Rustler is another card that sees like almost no play, and the little play it's seeing, the card is doing terribly. So another epic you can safely pass on, but one that I gotta recommend, Ogre Gang Ace. The ogres are rad. They're really fun to play. So Ogre Gang Ace and Kingpin Bud, I can recommend crafting them. They're semi-competitive. They're legend capable. We saw, I think Clark got legend with like Ogre Priest. Rarin got legend with Ogre Rogue. I don't know if that'll last for all that long, but it's really fun to play, and the whole package just goes really well together. And the Azurite Giant, another card, it got a pass on. The numbers are not great. The elemental deck's not going very well. And we all know Reno's Autocraft, absolutely ridiculous card. 5 stars. It's just amazing, super fun to play. You might get your dust back on it someday. It might get nerfed. It is just a ridiculously good and strong card, and it's so much fun to play if you like this style of strategy. I love Reno. It's a rad card. And yeah, Thunderbringer is a free legendary. So that's my recommendations on what you should craft, what you should pass on. Let me know what you think I'm right or wrong about, and hopefully you guys can get some cool cards, get some fun decks going out there. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Have a great day, and stay Reno, my friends.